And now, close your eyes. One of the reasons we close our eyes is because when they're open, we're always focused on the outer. Now you probably think that Halloween is over. Of course, all you have to do is look at each other to know it's not. But right now, each one of us is still wearing a costume. Now I want you to look around slowly at each other in this room. Look around. And as you do, every form, every body you see is, guess what? A costume. Some are wearing male bodies, some of them look pretty good. And some are female, some are young, some are old, some are white, some are black, some are tall, some are short, some are smiling, and some you think are asleep. But every person in this room is playing some role dictated by their costume that they're wearing. Now, there are many different costumes and many roles. Look around again. We see we have parent roles. Whoops, what else do we have? Realtor costumes. We have costumes indicating managers, ministers, and teachers. Married couples wearing rings, singles wishing. Here's the secret. Anything that you can perceive with your five senses is a costume. Whoa. There was so much in those words that I hope you feel. Interestingly enough, the Catholic Church, with its mystic side, declared the day following Halloween to be a holy day, All Saints' Day. Notice it didn't say some saints' day, but All Saints' Day. And it's a great truth hidden in this, a great truth, although few recognize it anymore. Now I want you to look around at these different looking people again and realize the truth that within each visible form or body, the costume each of us wears is actually the one invisible, formless life that animates all forms. There really is only one presence and one power in the universe and active in each of us. And that is the eternal, formless. Get a hold of that word. There's so much more to it. Formless, invisible, perfect one life. Underneath all the varied costumes we all wear is our true essence. All saints, all spirit, all formless, all connected. Each of us, like actors in a play, not only wears an appropriate costume, but each of us plays many different roles in a lifetime. First, we all practice what that little baby's doing, and we cry. Sound effects, thank you, baby. And then we play the role of a teenager, and if we're lucky, we get to be lovers. And then each of us chooses some type of employment or profession. Finally, after all that, we forget who we really are when we become entrenched in the costumes that we're wearing as time goes by. Some may wear uniforms in the military, like a Marine uniform, and carry a gun. Some may become plumbers and wear coveralls. Others may work for Cox Cable or IBM and wear that company's uniform. Still others become nurses, doctors with surgical garbs and stethoscopes, and usually some self-importance. Finally, because we wear that costume, that uniform for many years, we become lost in our roles. We lose our real identity by confusing it with the costumes we wear and the functions we perform. Only when our form ages, and it's not as much fun to identify with it, do some people even begin to realize that their bodies, their uniforms they wear in life, are really costumes. Get this, the original sin is the greatest error that humanity has ever committed. It has forgotten its origin. It is the original sin. We have become convinced that we are separate beings, bodies, outer forms, when the truth is there is but one formless divinity within each of us. This amnesia, this loss of realizing our real identity, self-realization, is the cause of all suffering and all war, whether between two people in a relationship or between countries in a war. Notice that each nation puts on a different uniform and believes that makes them essentially different from the enemy. And we give them names to dehumanize them. Names like gooks, wops, Japs, Nazis. I don't know all the rest of the names, but none of them are flattering if you've noticed. We dehumanize them so we can murder them. Thou shalt not kill. An individual goes to the penitentiary and gets life or death in prison. A country awards honors to those who kill the most. So obviously we have forgotten that we are one. Whenever we meet somebody new, we tend to say, "What's your name? What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Are you single?" All our questions are actually directed to the visible outer form, the costume. We are unconscious of our oneness because our real identity has no form. We can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't measure it, so it must not exist because we certainly would see it if it did. But our real identity is invisible, formless. It cannot be described with words, although we've tried. We call it life, spirit, breath, God, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Krishna, doesn't matter, arose by any name. But we're all trying to describe that which has no form and therefore cannot be described by words. Now look at the person next to you. Don't stop at their outer form. See if you can sense the essence within.
Yes.
Then look at their costume. Actually notice what they're, I wore red for television today. They certainly don't look exactly like you, and yet they are exactly like you. In fact, they are one with you. The one presence, the one life. The space that seems to separate you actually connects you. Halloween isn't just one day a year where people wear different costumes. It is every day. And as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. All the men and women merely players. And one man in his time plays many parts. It's no accident that Halloween, October 31st, is always followed by All Saints' Day. Sooner or later, every single one of us who is asleep in matter, disguised in their different costumes, will wake up. And what will they see? Well, I'll be all saints. The next evolutionary step for our species. The realization that under the many, many costumes we each wear, we are all saints, undivided, perfect being individuals, each wearing a different, unique costume. Human beings are really being human. This is where the world is today. It's beginning to wake up, it's stretching, and it's yawning, isn't it? And it's beginning to realize there is one under the many forms. The World Wide Web is one of the first materializations of the birthing awareness of this consciousness of oneness. The very name of this non-denominational church, unity, is an expression of the realization. Charles Fillmore was obviously enlightened, the founder of unity, or he would not have recognized this fact. Nor do I think it's an accident that we're meeting in the senior center. Wisdom does not always come with age, but youth is generally directed to the outer world almost exclusively. It's who can I meet, who can I marry, the kids, now we gotta take care of the kids, we gotta pay the mortgage, we gotta find a job, we gotta keep the job, and you're all concentrating on the outer world. It's the way it is usually. But with age, although I wouldn't know, the realization comes that these costumes are getting pretty old and worn out. Most seniors no longer have jobs to lose themselves in, and they don't look as work as well as they used to. Plus their loved ones are often sick or dead, so there's no one to be attached to anymore. With so little left, they're almost forced to focus on the impermanence of all form. And then the wise begin to search for the real essence of life, the formless all, the eternal oneness. But today a new heaven is being born. Even the young are beginning this inner search. And in this age, it's time to turn to each other, not just in this room like we did, but everywhere, and see ourselves the same self, the one formless presence, wearing every costume possible, the same formless life, animating each seemingly separate form, wearing a unique costume. We need to stop relying on the intellect and the five senses to become aware of the spiritual, invisible dimension. We need to stop taking the sleeping pills, the hallucinatory drugs administered daily by the TV, the great hypnotist in our living room. We need to stop swallowing the misinformation being fed to us from the television programs that program us. When Jesus said, "Judge not by appearances," what he meant is don't judge by the things you see, the things that appear in your world. He saw through the costumes to the one essence, the divinity everywhere. See, he agrees. He knew the truth. Righteous judgment is recognizing there's only one invisible presence. Today you could be dressed as a pirate or a president, and some will say, they're one and the same. You may be dressed as an electrician or a realtor. But metaphorically, tomorrow, as we strip off the costumes with all their varieties of color, race, style, and role, we each will discover the truth. I agree. The invisible, formless space where no thing appears to be. Spirit. This life is not only in outer space, but in the space within us, because we breathe it. This is what it said in Genesis 2:7. He's going to quote God now. God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature. Those words take on a new meaning. The breath of life is in every atom of our body and every atom of the whole universe. Scientists give us this example when describing the space in one atom. If you could see the inside of one atom, the nucleus would be the size of a dime in a huge cathedral. All the rest is space. There is so much space within every atom in the universe. Did you know that our bodies, like the atom, are 99.99% space? Now think of the power within the atom that was released by an atom bomb, the invisible power that changed the world. Space is not empty. It is teeming with power, electricity, rays, microwaves. It is filled with formless life. Perhaps the visionary Gene Roddenberry knew this when he wrote Star Trek's opening lines, "Space, the last frontier." Maybe he also knew that this wasn't just outer space. He never used the word outer space. I think he may have meant all space, the space containing life. You know, we look up to the sky and we see infinite space. If we could see our inner self, the real self that animates us, we would find infinite space. Space explains why the universe is the macrocosm, while the individual is the microcosm. But we're so hypnotized by form, we don't see space because it's formless. We focus our telescopes on planets and asteroids. Who focuses on no thing? We have an infinitesimal range of the spectrum of light that we see. Infinitesimal. There's so much more than what our eyes can see. Now look around this room again. But look at the empty space instead of the persons next to you. Look at the space. How much space there is and how rarely we see it. Space, the no thing that connects us. Space, the last frontier, unexplored. The great error of humanity has been the total identification with appearances. Remember, thoughts are things too. Our minds never shut up. You ever try to go to sleep?
Yes.
And your mind says, boy, you shouldn't have said that. Oh my God, how could you have? And then you go back to years ago and think, if only I had told him no. Or yes, depending upon how it turned out. Even 20 years ago, things will pop up in your memory and there your mind will tell you what a jerk you were. Or occasionally, if you're lucky, how brilliant you were. The mental, emotional, and physical have pushed the spiritual into the background so we don't even realize it exists. And as a result, we've been strangers in a strange land. We've wandered around in the density of matter, stumbling over each other, pushing each other, robbing and hurting each other, and even killing each other. But when we wake up from the dream of being human and take off the costumes we wear, we won't even feel guilty. We will understand that the actors who did the insane things wearing those silly costumes were imposters. And it was really a play and great theater. And then we'll realize that all along we were the dreamer not the dream or the nightmare, and that we are perfect. How do you wake up? Well, today you started. If you heard anything with ears that hear, you have an awareness now of space. Maybe you will not be so trapped. The next time you look at a person, you may even look at the space beyond them. Be careful at night alone, though, if you do that, because you will see things. And they can scare you a little. But I'm going to switch to the end because it's feeling too long.
Space, a final frontier.
In his book, The New Earth, Eckhart Tolle recommends that we take a breath of space or spirit consciously for 1 year. Now let's each do it now. One breath. Did anybody feel their shoulders drop? The more you do it, the more all of a sudden you'll start to really relax. And then he said, consciously breathe in the formless as often as you can remember for 1 year. And the transformation is so powerful you won't believe it. He ends his book with a truth that I love. Get this. A new species is rising on the planet. It is rising now. You